or phrase that you could use which could trigger him to want to respond. Okay? Once you've got the person's attention, okay, and you've asked a few basic questions, the first thing straight away that you can say is, this is what we have available. This is what we are doing today. Okay? So this is where it's very helpful to have a theme. Now, people that have been in Dawah for many years, okay, they'll find it very easy to carry on a conversation. Okay? For someone who's just starting, it can be quite difficult. Okay? And this is where, if you have a theme, it makes it a lot easier for someone to start a conversation. Okay? Because they know exactly what to say, where to start with, what to link it back to, and they don't have to think about it too much. When you build experience, then class, you can, to be honest, you should be able to just build a conversation. Okay? Now, the first discussion that you really want to have with any person from any part of the world who you're trying to give dawah to is you want to see how does he think about life. محاضره في الحياة. Okay? What does he want from life? Okay? A lot of the times, and you find this problem, and I'll go through some examples afterwards when I go through new reverts and new people to Islam. A lot of people give information, but they don't take away what the person already holds. Okay? So as an example, someone lives in the West, okay, and he thinks to himself, okay, God, does he exist? Does he not exist? I don't really care. I just want to enjoy my life. Okay? So now for this guy, even having a discussion about does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala exist or not, it's not really going to affect him significantly directly. Okay? Why? Because even if God exists, for him, he's still thinking, I just want to enjoy life. So you've not actually tackled the root thinking, the jadr. Yeah? It's important that you get to the base, the root of his thinking. Okay? And a lot of that starts with addressing purpose of life. Purpose of life can be taken in many, many different ways. Okay? In the West, we probably have 3, 4, 5 main categories. Okay? Number one is someone who already has a religion. Okay? Could be Christian, could be a Jew, could be a Muslim. Obviously, that's just part of the category. Could be a Buddhist, could be a Hindu, could be any type of religion. In the modern day, we even have, religions like empiricism, and you've got the whole Scientology, and these types of religions have also taken off. But really, someone may have a viewpoint already. Okay? Number 2 is a person that outright says there is no God. Okay? So he's usually a big fan of Richard Dawkins, Christopher Hitchens, Lawrence Krauss, and he states, there is no God, I completely reject God, and I'm going to decide for myself how to live my life. Okay? That's number 2. Number 3 is a person who says, I'm not too sure. I've studied science, I've looked around me, I've spoken to people, and I'm not too sure whether God exists. Okay? So these people we generally call agnostics, okay? Where they're somewhere in the middle, but they don't believe it can be proven decisively whether God exists or not, okay? And then you've got certain other categories where you'll have people that have had a bad experience with religion, okay? So they've grown up Christians or Jews or anything else, but they've been taken to church, they were forced to practice religion, and now they built a dislike for religion. Okay? So most people fall into these types of categories. Okay? So when you're addressing the idea of purpose of life, okay, there are a couple of different angles you can take. Okay? The first thing that you have to understand is that every single person on the entire planet, no matter how old they are, wants happiness. Agreed? Yeah? سعادة في الحياة. طبعا, they want tranquility, they want to live life very peacefully, they don't want to be battling with themselves, they don't want psychological problems, they don't want mental problems, they just want to simply live a happy life. That is the objective that you have to build the entire discussion upon. Okay? So now, when you're going through purpose of life, there's a couple of different discussions you can have. Number one is talking about happiness. Okay? So, a lot of people will say, I can either govern for myself what makes me happy. Okay? So for a lot of these people, it just means enjoying life. Yeah? Sleeping around, usually in the West, it's usually drinking, taking drugs, sleeping around, making lots of money, traveling the world. That for them is happiness. Okay? That can be a type of personality that you have. Now for that type of personality, the question you have to ask is two things. Number one is we find a very common trend across all Western societies, and Professor Laylard, who was a professor at Harvard University in America, he made a very interesting point. He wrote a book called Happiness. Okay? And subhanAllah, he said in the book Happiness, he said that in the West, okay, and the West obviously includes Wilayat al-Mutahida and generally obviously Europe. He said that in the past 50 years, we have seen the economic situation better in the West. Okay? فزادت ممكن أسعار وحياة المادية للناس. Okay? So the life for people financially has got much better. Okay? But he says that at the same time, as life has got much better financially, he said we have also seen an increase in a couple of things. We've seen an increase in depression. Okay? He says we've seen an increase in things like suicide, okay, anxiety, okay, mental problems, okay? And this is really an important point to start from. Why? Because consistently we find within the West, okay, we have various behaviours that are problematic, okay? And even the West itself is recognising that because of the absence of Aisha Ruhiyya, yeah, they're leading to spiritual vacuum. Spiritual vacuum means there is no spirit within them, okay? So what people are doing is they're finding other things to try to fill that gap in their lives. So for some people, it becomes football, yeah? So I was speaking with friends yesterday, how crazy people are in the UK about football. Egyptians are not crazy. UK are crazy, yeah? The amount of money they invest, okay? How much they're willing to travel, the places they're willing to go, how much support they're willing to do, and many of them will be willing to fight for their club, yeah? For other people, this spiritual vacuum just means that he doesn't have any ruhiyya, yeah? Doesn't have any spirituality in his life. For some people, it is entertainment, yeah? Entertainment can come in the form of women, or for women it can come in the form of men. Entertainment can come in the form of clubs, dancing, nightclubs, drink, prostitutes, brothels, all these types of things, drugs. And a lot of people develop a lot of these problems because of this, okay? And there's enough research to back much of this as well. The third thing that you find is that some people just go travelling, yeah? And you probably see that in Egypt, and I've seen it a lot of stalls, I've met a lot of travellers in Egypt as well. Is some people just don't find a purpose in life, they get sick of a 9-to-5 job, and they think, do you know what, there must be something more to this. So they don't know where to find it, so what do? They start travelling the world, okay? And I've sat with travellers myself, and I've gone through this full conversation, yeah? So you have to appreciate that many people in the West that are coming to your stalls, and I'll tell that whether even if it's from South America, many people are affected by the same problems, yeah? Whether it's in Africa, there is a lack of spirituality and a lack of happiness in their lives. And a lot of that leads to many of the behaviours that we see, okay? So that can always be a strong triggering point on the discussion about the fact that all of us are seeking that happiness, and we believe that we found it, we have it, and we can guide you to it. Is that okay? Yeah? So happiness is very important. Now, some of the other points you can have, which I'm not going to go into, okay? Which I've written here. I've not written here, okay? Some of the other things you can talk about is stability, financial security, family situations. So in the UK, I was listening to BBC Radio 4, and there was a research that was done. And in the research, they said that social isolation. Does everyone know what social isolation means? الواحد, yeah? الواحد في حياتهم. In the UK, so I have many friends that were non-Muslim, and as we grew up, when they got to 16 years old, their parents would say to them, you need to pay rent, hijab. Yeah? So the child thinks, 16 years old, forget that, yeah? I'm going to pay rent and I still have to come home for 8 o'clock. Yeah? So instead, a lot of them will leave the house. Okay? By 16, 17, most youngsters have moved out of their houses. Okay? Especially when you get to 18 plus. Then slowly, as life develops, he moves on, he's thinking to himself, my parents, okay, as soon as they had the opportunity to get rid of me, or to charge me rent, they had no problem with it. So he creates a natural distance between himself and his family. Very common situation in the West, okay? Then what happens? After a person has slowly started living separately, okay? He's chasing his own money, he's living his own life, he's going to work himself. He may visit his parents maybe monthly, maybe every 2-3 months, okay? If he's living close. If he's living far away, maybe once a year on Christmas, okay? And these are personal examples I'm giving you with friends I've had directly, okay? So, it creates a distance, بُعد بين أولاد وأبائهم, okay? After you have that distance, okay, you find that a lot of the elderly in the UK, they get put into places called care homes, as an example, okay? Now, whether it's the elderly or whether it's youngsters that are going to become elders, there's a big problem because a lot of elderly people in the UK live on their own, okay? So they get to a situation where they physically cannot look after themselves and therefore they have to be looked after by maybe a government agency or something like this, okay? Now, in the BBC4 radio report, it says that social isolation is more harmful to health than obesity. Yeah? Does everyone know what obesity is? Similar, yeah? So, social isolation is even more harmful to health than obesity. Why is that an important point? Because a lot of people in the West will be worried about family structures. My children are distant from me, okay? My parents are broken contact, okay? My brothers and sisters I hardly see, okay? And even that social isolation is a worry. So you can use lots of different entry points into the discussion, okay? And we're not going to have time to go through everything in detail, but just a key point to think about is, if you do a bit of research, a bit of reading, you can find many topics which a lot of people are affected by in many foreign countries, okay? Alhamdulillah, you know, we find odd examples in the Muslim lands, but right away from where I'm from in Pakistan, as my family, right away to Egypt, we find that things like the family unit are still very strong, alhamdulillah. And there was a famous, politician, Jeremy Abbott, I think he was called, from the UK, and he said that the non-Muslims in the UK, British citizens, he said, could learn from the Asian communities on how to look after their elderly. So even they recognise it in the West, although they're not vocal about it. Okay?
Which country?
This is the UK. England. No, I'm saying this problem. I'm saying this problem is across Europe. Yeah? Because ideas like Afdal individualism, me, myself, and I, okay, they've affected all of us. Where I only care about my wealth, my family, my money, okay? And parents, these people are more pressure on me. Class. Okay? And so the traditional family, which used to exist, yeah, even colleges, I would say that some people can still go to colleges in the same area but live separate. So children as young as 16, 17, 18 feel pressure to leave home.
Yeah, and in the same city.
They can be in the same city, yes. Big problem. Yeah. So many of these things are realities which a lot of people in the West face. Okay? And I just want to, that's probably the experience I can share with you. Okay? And just to say that many of these things, if we do a bit of research, a bit of reading, a bit of understanding, we can quite easily find many of these topics to actually trigger conversations, okay? Because it's things that really affect people quite heavily, okay? And even now, with marriage, at the moment, even marriage, okay? So a famous comedian in the UK, Ricky Gervais, him and his wife agreed that when they got married, they were not going to have kids, okay? And it's strange because there's an article in The Guardian and his wife was interviewed, and she said that when I started seeing my friends with grandchildren, she goes, I felt like I made a mistake. But a lot of these things people are being affected by because the old traditional Christian values which were there, which we have a lot of similarities with Islam, a lot of these things have gone missing. They don't exist anymore. And because of that, we find that people are very focused on just themselves. Okay? And many of these problems arise because of it. Okay? Any questions on that? Okay? Next one we're going to move on to, I'm just going to very quickly, I'm not going to write the detailed conversation here, but I'm just going to write a few quick points. Okay? So first thing, you need to make it important to a person. Why do you need to question your purpose now? I've got a phone. I did have a phone. Oh, there's my phone, yeah? If I look at my phone has a purpose. It has a hadaf. It has a maqsad, yeah? It has a ghaya. If I do not use it for its purpose, you would think I'm silly. So if the chair was unbalanced and I put the phone under the chair to balance it, what would you think? Crazy. Magnoon. Yeah? Is that very bad? Okay. So, the thing you want to put in someone's head is that your entire life, everything that you do has a purpose. You wake up, you brush your teeth to keep your teeth clean. Okay? You wash your face to prevent the build-up of moisture. You dress clothes to be able to keep yourself warm. You go to work to be able to attain finance. You eat to satisfy yourself. Why is it when you look at yourself in the mirror, you don't see a purpose and you don't question it? So you can go through various different angles to try to make a person think about purpose. Next point. When you've made them think about purpose, obviously the three key questions that you're going to ask are: 1. Where did you come from? Okay. Number 2 is, what is the purpose of this life? And number 3, where are you going? Where are you going? Alhamdulillah. So, these three questions are very important for every single person on the face of this earth, okay? Whether it is someone living in Mexico to the small community in Antarctica, everywhere you go, so young man here, he's come from somewhere, he's here for a purpose, and he's going to go after somewhere when he leaves. Everyone does the same. You go to university with a purpose, you study there, you leave and you have a purpose. All of these questions are always answered for us, but the one that we forget is the very, very, very first original question, which was, where did we initially come from? Okay? So naturally, this is where a lot of the discussion starts. Once we've discussed purpose, you're then going to move on to point number 2, which is going to be, okay, some people will say that we came as a result of evolution. What came before evolution? People may say Big Bang. What came before the Big Bang? People will say a quantum singularity. Sounds, quantum singularity, okay? Sounds very detailed and a very high level statement, but it means we don't know, okay? So, a lot of people, when they look to invest these things, they will have certain different perspectives, okay? The key thing that you want to do is show that if we can establish where we came from, then that will naturally make it clear for us as to what is our purpose. Is that okay? So, if I made a pencil, I found the creator, I naturally know what the pencil was made for. Yeah? Apple made the iPhone, they know what it's used for. Someone makes a laptop, someone makes a door, someone makes a water bottle, someone makes a fan. They make it with a purpose. And that's the key thing we want to put into someone's mind. That if God has created you, then you need to question, what did God create you for? Okay? So that's the link between the two discussions. Purpose of life, and now we're going into proof of God. Okay? Now, proof of God, there probably 5 or 6 different angles you can take on the discussion. Okay? Some of them can be experiential, but most we can discuss intellectually, and we can go through rational proofs. Okay? So, some of the key points that you can go through. Number 1 is you can go through, has anyone heard of the cosmological argument? Okay? Number 2, you can go through that's not necessary, correct? I think so. Okay? 3, you can go through a discussion on morality. Number 4, we can go through a discussion of proving it through the Quran. 5, we can go through design. Okay? Now, if we went through every conversation in detail, okay, we may possibly end up staying here, probably till Isha, but I'm just going to summarise what I'm going to go through one of the key discussions, the cosmological, and then I'm just going to touch on each of the others. Okay? So this is the cosmological argument. The cosmological argument starts on a very, very basic premise. Okay? The first premise that it starts upon is the fact that we have to agree that if I say to you, this is a piece of cloth, okay? Would everyone agree with me? Okay? Yes, because we all have something called a rational faculty, how we think, yeah? Yeah? We see the reality, okay? So we can taste, we can smell, we can see, we can hear, and we can touch, okay? So we do this with everything around us. The first thing that I do for a table is I see it, okay? I can touch it, I can hear it, I can taste it, but I don't think I will, yeah? And once I've done that, that information, okay, is linked to previous information in my mind, okay? The previous information tells me that a table looks in a certain way, it has a certain design, it has a certain shape, and therefore, when what I sense with my access, once I sense it, I link it to what I understand to be a table, and my mind processes that information to tell me, yeah, it's definitely a table, okay? So you have to, hours. So you have to start the discussion by agreeing with certain things which they cannot argue with you on. Everyone with me so far? Okay? I know I'm talking a lot here, but try to stay with me. Okay? Inshallah. The first thing that you need to agree with them is the fact that every single thing around us, whether it's humans, whether it's plants, whether it's animals, whether it's anything from the universe or the solar system and beyond, okay, that they all have certain attributes and certain ways that we can describe them, okay? What's the word for attributes? Sifat, yeah. So it's their descriptions. So they all have certain descriptions that no one can disagree with. Why is this argument so strong? Because at each stage you get agreement that the person agrees with you. Okay? So humans, okay? Humans have a certain size, okay? They have a certain shape, okay? They have certain features. They have a number of eyes. They have a certain one nose, okay? Number of ears, okay? A limited number of hairs. If you look at the internal components of a human being, blood, the amount of blood that runs through your body is what it says, the basic organs within the body, okay, the number of muscles, the cartilage, the tendons, the ligaments. Then if you go into a cellular level, even DNA, okay, deoxyribonucleic nucleic acids, even DNA itself is dependent upon the conditions of the body to survive, okay? So the first attribute that the first two attributes we can apply to every human on the face of this earth is number 1 is is that is limited. Why? Because there's a certain size, certain shape, etc. Okay? The second attribute that we can all agree upon for human beings is that they are dependent. Okay? What do I mean by dependent? Okay? You're dependent on food, you're dependent on oxygen, you're dependent on to be able to breathe, you're dependent on water, you're dependent on nutrition. So we have a dependency on things to be able to survive, and we also were dependent on our parents to come into existence. So we can say two attributes which apply for every human around us: limited and dependent. Okay? So limited and dependent. We'll just write the two words because it's quite important. Okay? So just simply, everything is limited and second is dependent. Perfect. Okay? Now, I'm giving you a very quick summary in terms of the discussion, but we're just going to cover the key points. So, if everything around us, in terms of human beings, is limited and dependent, okay? Now let's include plant life. Now let's include animals. Now let's include any beings from the solar system, okay? Whether it's stars or galaxies or right ways and Milky Ways, okay? Nebulas and red dwarfs, etc. Does every single thing, even outside of human beings, does it have the same attributes? Plants, are they also limited? Yes. Size, shape, etc. Are they also dependent? Yes. Okay? Now let's look at animal life in the same way. Okay? Animal life can include pretty much every living being except humans. Okay? Do they have the same attributes? Are they also limited? Yes. And are they also dependent? Yes. So we've agreed that all living life on the face of the earth, at least, is definitely limited and dependent. Okay? The one where you may get a bit of a struggle with is the next point. The next point is the universe limited? Okay? What do people think? Is the universe limited?
Yes.
Okay, what if I said to you it wasn't? It's ever expanding. Perfect, so that's one point you can say. It has a start and it has an end. Number two is if I have a pen, okay? I've got one pen. That one pen, whether it's a planet, whether it's a star, whatever it is limited. Everyone would agree on that, yeah? It's also dependent. Because it's dependent on a certain reaction and a certain set of circumstances to come into existence. Okay? I have a second pen. I have a third pen. I have a fourth pen. The universe may be expanding, but the very fact that it's made up of limited things means the end result will always be limited. So I'll give you a quick example here. Okay? If I start with 1, okay, and add 1, what's the answer? 2. I'm doing that. Okay? I add another 1, 3. Okay? I add another 1, 4. Even if that process kept going on forever, that number would always be limited. Okay? It's a word in Arabic for limited, which will help people. I've got my okay, yeah? So, regardless of how many ones I add, regardless of how many numbers I add, if 1 and the starting is limited, no matter how many limited things I add to it, it will always be what? Limited. Mahdud. Okay? And we know from the nature of anything, absolutely anything which is limited, we know by default that anything which is limited cannot have come into existence on its own, because there's nothing in reality which tells us otherwise. Okay? So there's no evidence, and I think Lawrence Krauss argued that you can have a spontaneous matter or energy, something being created out of nothing. Yeah? And then when he was asked, what was that nothing?